I started the build on this Suburban about a year ago, and 6 months ago I got the powertrain, drivetrain all functioning so I could get it out on the road. And it's got about 10,000 miles on it, although I haven't really done much to address the creature comforts. I don't have heating, I don't have air conditioning. Heck, I didn't have turn signals until recently. But the last few weeks I've been hard at work installing a Dakota Digital dash with their new RTX system up front. I put a Switch Pros in to control all of my electronics, and I have a full array of KC lights. One of the more challenging aspects of this build was getting all of the factory gauges to work with the engine and work with the new sensors that were going to be in there. And I was unsuccessful. I never got it actually to work perfectly. My gas gauge was the only one that worked. I never had a speedometer. I put in a tach and was able to get that working, and I got my boost and all the gauges I put in working. But things like water temperature, oil pressure, no. They never worked. And so I resigned myself to putting in a Dakota Digital dash. I hadn't really looked into them for a while. And so when I went to see what they had and saw the new RTX system, I was stoked. I wasn't really a huge fan of the older technology that they had. It didn't look factory, and I wanted to maintain that factory look. So the RTX system is their latest flagship model. It has tons of features in it. You can add all these modules to it, and it works perfectly. I now have tach, I've got oil pressure, I've got outside air temperature, I've got speedometer, I've got my gas gauge working, my oil pressure, my voltmeter, all of it works, including all the lights on the dash for turn signals, high beams, and the like. So let's take a look at that system. I'm going to break it down so you guys can see what the dash looks like, what each of the individual consoles, and what the install is like. If you've followed my channel at all, you know that I am a big fan of consolidating wiring, of simplifying the rat's nest under your dash, and I've made that an endeavor with pretty much every build to build in not only redundancy, but just simplicity to the system. So should anything go wrong, I'm able to troubleshoot it and repair it in the field quickly. Now, following along with those guidelines, I tried to get my factory gauges to work in the K30 Burb. I ended up putting an aftermarket tach and an aftermarket speedo in because no VSS, and so I ran a GPS tach for my speedometer, which was mounted elsewhere. And then I've got a diesel tach that I mounted up on the column. The water temperature hasn't ever really read properly. It's a combination of the sender and the gauge not being the right ohm reading and things like that. The fuel gauge has worked perfectly, but that's not surprising. Nothing has really changed with the fueling. And my voltmeter is still working. Oil pressure has not worked. So I spent quite a bit of time trying to get those things to work, and ultimately decided that the Dakota Digital was going to be the best solution for me. This is their VTX. It's their latest edition, and this is specific for the square bodies. You can see that they maintain a lot of the factory color tones and fonts and just appearance, and so it looks very, very factory when it's in there. Until you turn it on, you see all the information displayed, you see the electronic interface, and you recognize that you're dealing with a different beast here. So how does this guy work? Well, this is the unit that goes obviously in your cluster. This is going to replace the factory cluster. It's not going to replace any of the covers or anything like that. The bezel still remains. But on the back, you'll see that you've only got a few plugs. You've got indicators for your turn signals, so that's what will operate the LED flashers. Then you've got one port right here. This is the display port that connects to the main box, and then this controls the switch function, which I'll show you here in a second. So there is our gauge console, and then these are the three modules that I'm using. These two modules are a separate purchase. This is what you get when you purchase it from Dakota Digital. This is the main brains. All of your senders will terminate into here, and then through this port, it connects directly to here to display the readings. What's really nice is this
communicates with this. So no longer trying to run an intermediary or needing to put a resistor in or some of the other stuff I've had to do to make my gauges work. This takes care of all that. You're going to see that you've got the traditional inputs on here. You're going to have your fuel input. You've got a dimmer adjustment so that it will automatically dim when you turn your headlights on. In pressure input, that's going to be used for oil pressure. I've got temperature for my water temperature. You've got speed inputs, and then you've got outputs should you need to hook up anything for cruise control or things like that. Everything is going to get 12 volt constant, 12 volt switched, and ground. And then on this side, you will see that it's got all the indicators for whether you got your high beams on or whether you left your lights on, or if you're in four-wheel drive, you can set that all up on here. This is all controlled through a switch. Let me see, let me grab the switch and bring it over here for you guys. This is the switch output. This plugs directly into the back of here and gives you the option to toggle through different configurations and different screens on these two interfaces. The nice thing about this is it's just instantaneous, but you can program the entire unit through this, or you can use their Bluetooth app, which I think I'm going to be using because it's probably going to be a lot simpler and easier. So this right here will give you the basics. It'll give you, your speedo. It'll give you your oil temp. It'll give you your water temp. It'll give you, fuel gauge, things of that nature. Now, if you want to go a little bit further, which I needed to, you can pick up additional modules. There's a few different modules that they make that interface directly with this. This gun right here, you'll see, has this BIM input-output. This connects directly to here with a cable, and this is what will give me my speed. I am running a GPS speedo. Now, this has a GPS antenna in it. It's gonna be under my dash, so it's not gonna have good visibility. So they do offer an optional antenna input, which I have already on the roof. So this will be getting a GPS external antenna. It then constantly correlates the data from the internal antenna, the accelerometer, and the external antenna. And that way it gives you a consistent, accurate reading for not only your odometer, but also for your speed. So this guy connects to this guy, giving me both my speed, and also it's got a temperature input for external temperature. So I've got a sensor that wires in here that will give me a reading of what the outside temperature is. Pretty cool. This one is going to be giving me my digital tach signal. Because the diesels do not run spark plugs, they don't run a coil, they don't have coil packs, distributor, anything like that. A diesel will pull the information for the tachometer from the alternator. And so the alternator will output a signal that comes in here, and then this guy outputs the signal to here, which delivers it to this guy. So with these three units right here, I'm going to get everything I need to get full, accurate, up-to-date, consistent readings of speed and all the parameters of my engine that I am looking for.
I don't ask a lot in return for these videos, but if you are feeling generous, go check out my Patreon page. It's linked down below, patreon.com/MerricksGarage. Or if you're not feeling that generous, but you'd like to help me out, click the subscribe button and become part of the Merricks Garage family. You guys ready to try and make sense of some of this mess of wiring that is under your dash? I'm in the process of installing this Dakota Digital system and trying to clean up a lot of the wiring. This is the controllers that come with the Dakota Digital. You've got the main one right here, and then you can purchase these additional modules that will give you more features. Like this one gives me my diesel input for my tach. This one gives me my air temperature, and it also gives me my GPS speed. And then everything gets sent from here through this cable up to the dash. So I have the opportunity to eliminate a lot of wires and consolidate, and so that's what I'm trying to do here. And I thought I'd point out some of the stuff that I know is confusing in here that you guys can use, and just make sure that you are checking schematics before. Don't take my word on all this because the wiring colors do change. But let's jump into a couple of them. you'll see that I've got this nest right over here with all these T-taps on it. I do like these T-taps because they're a way to get power out of that wire without completely, you know, cutting it, putting in a butt connector. They're a lot cleaner. I don't like to use them when I am starting from the beginning because I think there's better ways of doing it. But for tapping into power or circuits or 12 volts sources, this is the way to go in my opinion. This is your OEM dash cluster connector. So from this, you're gonna get headlights, high beams, you're gonna get your e-brake signal. So you can tap into here to get like the dimmer switch and the e-brake turn on, and you can even get your four-wheel drive turn on and all that kind of stuff from these. Just make sure you find your schematic for your year and check out the wiring. And then what else do we have in here? There's so much wires back here, but I've been able to pull out a lot. The headlight switch, like I said, make sure you know that your wiring is correct. The colors have changed sometimes. This, for example, is I know this happens to be my running lights. So I tapped into this one for running lights. You've also got this one that goes down. This is just another accessory wire out of there. This illuminates the LEDs I put up in the new visor I installed. I don't know if you can see those guys right there. That is what sends the signal to those and gives them power. So I pull on my headlights and there we go, we got orange. I also tap into here for my amp power steps. I have the power steps designed to come down when the dome light activates. So anytime a door is open, they'll come down. And so this white wire is for my dome slash courtesy light. Courtesy, hard to say. Courtesy lights. So that energizes this circuit, which means my steps will open and close. Another important thing to look at down there, let's see if I can get you zoomed in on that. That is, come on, focus. That is your ground under the dash. So I ground as much stuff back to here because I know this is a good ground. So use that. So I've got this dash cam up here. This obviously needs power. My radio needs power. These units all need power. And they're gonna need two different types of power. They're gonna need battery power, which is always on to maintain clocks and settings. And then they need switch power, which comes on when the key is turned to give them the power to operate when the truck is functioning. So to do that, let's dive underneath here. I use, and once again, this might not be the best for your situation, but I use these little fuse holder taps that go into what I know to be a switched or a constant 12 volt source. And make sure you've got two fuses in there, one for the original spot that is being fused and another fuse for the wires you're running off it. Now, these aren't high draw. I mean, they're very low amperage, so I'm not really worried about these guys overpowering the wiring that I've put in here, or the fuse panels that I've put in. But by giving myself a bunch of 12 volt dedicated, 12 volt switched, I can tap into here knowing that the power is good. Oh, and here we got more wires that I've got to figure out what they are. I believe this is for my horn. Man, there's just so much stuff under here. I'm making sense of it slowly, but do not be alarmed if this is overwhelming. It should be. This is my favorite part right here. Been waiting to do this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's fulfilling. So I understand there might be some confusion about what the Switch Pros does and why I am so excited about this thing, because I've done several videos on it. It's going to be your fuse panel, it's going to be your relay box, it's going to be your switching source. It's going to take all of these various devices and consolidate them into one thing. And that's what you've got right there. That is the Switch Pros unit, and all those wires coming off it, those are various accessories that I can add to give me whatever I want, whether it's rock lights, whether it's, you know, a light bar up front, or a compressor, or a locker, e-locker, anything that draws up to 30 amps you can run through here. And then it connects up front to a panel. I'll show you that in a second here. And that panel is fully programmable. So you can just say, I want one push of this button to control output 9. And then if I push this button twice in succession, I want it to control output 9 and output 7. You can program it a myriad of different ways. And it cleans up everything. Much like the Dakota Digital Dash cleans up the whole install. Same with this. So that's why I wanted to combine the video. I think these two go well together. But let me show you this thing in operation. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll show you what the lights look like. That's why we're out here in the dark, so you guys can actually see it. Here's the console up front that controls all the various switches. Ignore these ones. I don't have them assigned, so I haven't put the decal on there yet. But what you can see is I've got my dust lights, as I call it. This is the rear dust bar. So pushing it on, you'll see that this is what I get right there. And then hit it again, and I'm going to get it flashing. Turn it off, and then I've got my rear. So that's the rear of the chase bar, and then I've got the rear pods up on the door. Yeah, these guys aren't messing around. So that's the 2 pods up top and the one on the bar. Just turn those off before I summon Batman here. Hazards is gonna turn on my flashers and my reds. Those are the dim reds. And then the final one I've got hooked up so far is, well, apart from my compressor, this turns on my air compressor. I don't know if you guys hear that? That was my air compressor starting. And then rock lights. This is the 3rd unit I've installed, and I've got 2 more that I'm installing in some other vehicles coming up. It really is that good. Do not sleep on it. I've got a video that I'll connect up here that has a full detailed review. But check it out. I highly recommend it. I know electrical can be a pain in the neck for a lot of us, but it really isn't that difficult. If you are methodical and follow logic and just take your time, you're gonna be really satisfied with the work that you get done. It's very rewarding to untangle a bunch of wires, get a bunch of stuff out of there, and then have things working when you're done properly. I have a lot of videos on wiring. I'm gonna link to a playlist up here that will just put a bunch of my wiring videos in there. So if you wanna go learn something about wiring and see how I learned and what I do, that's a good place to start. If you have not subscribed to my channel, right there, please. We'll see you next week. Merricks Garage.